Charlottesville and parts of northern Virginia are going to be under a state of emergency this weekend. Governor Ralph Northam there issuing a declaration over concerns of possible unrest as that city marks 1 year since a white supremacist rally left one person dead. Violence broke out in the city as white supremacists, Klan members, white nationalists, neo-Nazis marched to voice their support for their movement, also to protest the city's planned removal of a statue of Robert E. Lee. The group Unite the Right had been denied permission to march this year in Charlottesville. Today, however, the group was granted a permit to hold a rally in D.C. I want to bring in Charlamagne tha God. He is, of course, the wildly popular host of The Breakfast Club on Power 105.9 radio here in New York City.
Point one, Mr. Melvin.
Excuse me, point one. I always get it wrong, but I do listen.
Yes.
I want to play something that the president said. This, of course, caught a lot of attention right after the rally. This is President Trump.
I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Blame on both sides. When you heard that, what'd you think, Lester?
That was him not wanting to denounce his base, you know, a base full of racists, a base full of bigots, a base full of prejudiced people. So he didn't want to denounce them because he knows if anybody shows up for him, it's going to be those people. That's what that was.
You think that was not even so much a dog whistle, just a megaphone?
That was not a dog whistle. That was, hey, don't blame my people for this. It's blame on both sides. No, it wasn't. The blame goes to the people that were there to cause harm to people that day. The blame goes to the people that were there being prejudiced that day, the bigots, the racists. Like, that's who the blame goes to.
A year later, where do you think we are in this country, a year after Charlottesville?
I think right now we're in that same place. I think the energy has gotten worse. You know, I think that the mask has been pulled off America. You know, I think that, you know, when Donald Trump makes statements like that, he gives license to people to keep the racism going, to wave that bigot flag high. So I think it's just as worse, if not more worse.
Just last week, there was a group of pastors, black pastors, who met with the president at the White House. This is the comments that one of the pastors made who was in attendance. Take a listen.
This is probably going to be and I'm going to say this at this table, the most pro-black president that we've had in our lifetime, because, and I try to, you know, analyze the people that I encounter. This president actually wants to prove something to our community, our faith-based community and our ethnic community.
The president has not polled well with African Americans since he took office. If you look at a legitimate poll, you talk to a lot of folks on the radio. Do you get the sense that that's changing at all?
Absolutely not. Pastor Darrell Scott has a lot of dye in his hair, so the dye is getting to his brain, so it's causing him to say things that are simply not true. Like Donald Trump actually has policies that are hurting African Americans. You know, when you are in the White House and you're trying to reverse everything that Barack Obama has done, Barack Obama's policies directly did affect a lot of African Americans. You know, when it comes to education, when it comes to immigration, you know, when it comes to the environment, like the things that Donald Trump is doing is actually hurting African Americans. So I don't see how he could ever be the most pro-black president of any lifetime.
LeBron James, this dust up that happened while I was on vacation last week. As you know, he opens this public school in Akron, Ohio for at-risk young people, free tuition, free meals, transportation, access to food pantries for needy families. The president commenting after he sees LeBron on CNN, quote, "LeBron James was just interviewed by the dumbest man on television, Don Lemon. He made LeBron look smart, which isn't easy to do. I like Mike." You see something like that from this president. Then you know, he's referred to Maxine Waters on more than one occasion as a low IQ individual. He's made other comments, the S-hole countries.
Yes.
Do you get the sense that the president just doesn't care what black and brown people think about him or his policies, or you think there's more to it than that?
Remember when Kanye West said George Bush doesn't care about black people?
Yeah.
Donald Trump doesn't care about black people. That's all it boils down to.
But you saw the group of pastors there sitting around the table.
That means nothing. I mean, you know, a lot of those pastors, you know, they feel like they were walking in faith. A lot of them feel like, you know, God told them to be there, and they felt like they could get through to him. Yeah. And I can understand why they would feel that way. You know, if Kim Kardashian can get through to Donald Trump, I can understand if you're a pastor, a man of the cloth, why you feel like you can get through to him. But that's just for photo ops. Like, he does that for things like this. You don't think he knew the 1-year anniversary of Charlottesville was coming up, and he wants to look like he's in the good graces of some black people in our community? So you get the people who are, foolish enough in a sense, or feel like they can make some change happen to come to the White House and you take a photo op with them. That's all.
Nashville Police, before I let you get out of here, you've probably seen this. Nashville Police, they just released some surveillance video, and it shows something that we have unfortunately seen far too often in this country. It shows an officer chasing and then fatally shooting another black man. We've seen that scene repeated time and time again. What's got to change?
What's got to change is that we need more people from the community in police uniforms. We need people that are from the community, that are of the culture, that are people of color who know that, Lil Tyrone on the corner isn't a threat. Because you know why? Because Lil Tyrone, you've been knowing Lil Tyrone since he was a kid. Lil Tyrone's parents. You probably went to school with Lil Tyrone's parents. Like when you interact with black and brown people on a regular basis, then you know how to act with black and brown people on a regular basis. The only people that think that we're threats are the people that don't deal with us on a regular basis. That's it. Simple and plain.
Having you on. Thank you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
God, 105.1.
There you go. We're nationally syndicated though, so we're in 80 markets across the country.
And there's another show. We can't plug all your jobs because you've got like 6. But there's a book. What's the name of the book?
I have a new book. I have a book out now called Black Privilege. It's a New York Times bestseller, but I have another book coming out called Shook One, Anxiety's Playing Tricks on Me. It'll be out October 23rd. It's available for pre-order now. It's about, anxiety that I experienced and PTSD and trauma and going to therapy.
I want you to come back and talk about that because that is not something that people that look like us.
I will, and I'm going to bring the picture of the puppy licking your face. Craig's from South Carolina like me. I have a picture of a puppy licking his face. I'm going to bring that next time.
We're going to go to commercial right now.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.